Welcome to the very first episode of my Haemochromatosis channel. In case you don't know what haemochromatosis is, it means iron overload. And some people are genetically predisposed to having haemochromatosis. And this episode is just going to be about how I was originally diagnosed with haemochromatosis. And it happened way back in 1996, and when I was 40 years old. And the news media were saying that men in particular were very reluctant to go to the doctor. And they suggested that any man that's 40 years of age should go to the doctor. So I thought, right, okay, I took myself along to the doctor and I asked for a full checkup. And so I had my full checkup, blood tests and all that sort of stuff. And then a few days later, I got a phone call from the doctor and he says, I'd like you to come in and see me. And that's always a bit of a worry when the doctor wants you to come in and see him. So I went in to see the doctor. And the doctor said to me, it's come back from your blood test that you have non-alcoholic, that was the good part, non-alcoholic steatotic hemochromatosis. And so I said, what the hell is that? And he said he didn't know what it was either. So he actually had to look it up in his doctor's encyclopedia, or whatever books they have, and he found out that it stands for iron overload. And I said, okay, so what does that mean? What are the symptoms of iron overload? And he said, at the time, well, there aren't any symptoms. I said, oh, well, there's not a problem then. And he said, well, the problem is that when you turn about 50 years of age, you'll just suddenly die, and nobody will know why. I said, oh, that's a bit more concerning. So he said what he was going to do was send me to a specialist, which happens to be a haematologist. I didn't know that then. A haematologist that knows all about this sort of stuff. So I got sent to this other doctor, and this particular doctor said he wanted to do a liver biopsy to see how much iron was in my liver. So I got sent to a blood donation place to have some blood. No, I'm jumping ahead of myself. He sent me to the hospital to have a liver biopsy. So I had to go to the hospital, my first time ever in a hospital, and they drilled a hole in my side and took out a little tiny piece of my liver. And the specialist had that biopsy analysed, and it was found out that I had a certain type of haemochromatosis. In other words, a gene mutation, which I'll explain more about later. So once he discovered that, he said, you need to be bled. And I said, oh, what do you mean? He says, well, you need to have blood taken off you so that that will take out some of the iron that's in your blood, and that in turn will cause your body to make new blood that doesn't have any iron in it. So we've got to keep doing that on a regular basis until such time as your iron levels get down to a more acceptable level. So he sent me to a blood donation place. So I went there, and I had to go there every fortnight to have blood taken off me until I got down to a certain level. Now, in those days, it did not occur to me to take copies of the results and what the levels were that I had and got down to, but that resulted in my iron. I had the I had to do the blood donating, so that's a whole 500 mils of blood taken off me every fortnight, and I had that done for 3 months until my iron levels got down to a more acceptable level, so that I wouldn't die when I turned 50. So that's the end of that section of my life. Okay, I'll pause it there. So after that 3-month period, I went to see the haematologist again, and he said, you've now got your iron levels back down to a normal level, and we will see you in 10 years' time. And that was the end of that. Now, jumping 9 years further, till I was the age of 49, I happened to be in the Philippines, and I had the experience of feeling very, very weak, and I thought it was just the high temperatures, or I had the bird flu, or some unusual thing. But I felt so bad I actually went to the hospital, and to cut a long story short, they discovered that I had very high blood pressure, and that they decided to do an ECG on me and discovered that I was actually having a heart attack at the time. So I got rushed off to ICU, and they managed to make me feel a lot better with drugs. But they decided to do a angiogram to see how my arteries were, and it turns out my arteries were very badly clogged up, and they decided that I needed to have some stents put in. So I went in for an operation, well, not actually an operation, just a procedure, where they put in some stents. They were only going to put in 3 stents, but they ended up putting in 6, because every time they put in a stent, my artery burst in another place. So the surgeon had to put in an extra stent, and every time he put in another stent, my artery burst, apparently. And he ended up putting 4 stents in just the one artery. And then I had to have a rest for the night, and the next day I went back and he did another 2 arteries. So I ended up having 6 stents in 3 arteries, so that's 4 in one artery and 1 each in the other 2 arteries. So altogether 6 stents. And I felt absolutely fantastic after that. Never felt so good in my life as having those 6 stents put in. So after that experience, I came back to New Zealand, and 13 years later, when I turned 63, I started having heart problems again. In fact, I was having breathing difficulties, and I actually thought I had asthma. So I went to the doctor and I was asking the doctor for some more asthma medication, but he decided to do an ECG on me as well, and he came to the conclusion that there was something not going quite right about my heart, and that's why I was having breathing trouble, not because of asthma, but because my heart wasn't pumping at the full amount that it's supposed to. So he said I needed to go to the North Shore Hospital, and I said, okay, I'll drive down there. And he said, no, you're not driving, I'm calling an ambulance. That was my first ride in an ambulance. Oh, except for when I was in the Philippines, which wasn't really an ambulance, it was more just being put in the back of a van. But so I got an ambulance ride to the North Shore Hospital. The next thing I'm in intensive care in Auckland Hospital. Oh no, not Auckland. North Shore Hospital, which is in Auckland, but it's the North Shore Hospital. And then I was, they said they would do an angiogram to just see what was going on. So that's where they put some special liquid into your veins or arteries so that they can see with the angiogram what your arteries are doing. Same as in the Philippines. And so they did that for me, and I was expecting to have some more stents put in. But as soon as the specialist saw my arteries, he says, "Oh, we can't fix what's wrong with you with just stents. You're going to need a triple bypass." And of course I was absolutely terrified with that, because triple bypass means cutting open your chest, opening you up, and replacing a whole lot of arteries with spare bits and pieces from around your body. Which is pretty scary when you first hear about it, that you're going to have open heart surgery. That really freaked me out. So I did end up getting a triple bypass. To cut a long story short, I had a triple bypass, which I do not recommend to anybody. It's a terrible experience. The actual operation's not a problem because you're knocked out. And apparently I was in a coma for 2 whole days before I was revived. And after a triple bypass, you feel terrible. I couldn't even lift my head up off the pillow. And of course, they want you to get out of bed as soon as possible. So to get yourself back recovered so that you can live again, which is a very painful, difficult process. But the interesting thing is, the surgeon said to me that we did not have to give you a blood transfusion during the operation, because your iron levels were so high that we did not need to give you a blood transfusion. Your hemoglobin was fine through the whole operation. And so I had a triple bypass without any blood transfusion. So that's my Viking heritage. Apparently it's the Vikings that have got this genetic mutation. So they could go out and fight wars and have sword fights and bleed a lot, and they would survive because they had such high iron levels. So it was a mutation that benefited them at the time. But the trouble is, you die at about age 50. And the next episode, I'll talk more about why haemochromatosis has all these bad effects. It's not just bad for your heart, it also causes you to have diabetes, causes you to have loss of libido, sex drive, erectile dysfunction, depression, gout, lots of different things that you can get because of having too much iron in your blood. So it's not a symptom-free disease. It causes a lot of problems. So that's all I'm going to say for this episode. To find out what happens next, please follow on with episode 2. Thanks very much. Over and out. Live long and prosper. Thank you. Bye.